Hey everyone, I'm got a little inspired today. Um, I've been working through Exorcism. So if you haven't seen Exorcism, it has nothing to do with demons, thankfully. It's a collection of exercises that are available and free to use for anyone who wants to practice or to actually get mentored help. And it's available at exorcism.io, exercism.io. And they have a lot of different language tracks. I think it's 47. There you go. Everything from C to even more modern things like Go, the traditional standbys like Python, JavaScript, and even some things that are maybe not quite programming languages, but still interesting, like Vim script here and R. So I've played with this on and off for about a year since I've known about it, and recently I've kind of recommitted myself to working through Python, specifically the Python track. I'm also a little bit interested in Bash, and I used to be interested in Ruby, but obviously not too interested. I just did 2 exercises there. So I've been playing with Python. I actually restarted Python. I had started the Python track about a year ago, and I thought it might be interesting to restart and see what I could do, see how much I remembered, and I noticed that some new exercises have been added, so it's not all a review. I only did 2 or 3 exercises when I started a year ago. So my goal was to work through, at least an exercise a week. So not very much at all, not very much time, just something to continuously improve my Python skills and refresh some of the things that I've forgotten. So Exorcism is interesting because let's look at this exercise that I've just read the description of. That's why it shows that it's in progress. Exorcism is interesting because it's not a tutorial at all. It gives you a problem in this introduction statement, and then it gives you some, basic instructions of how to complete the exercise, as far as once you've written something that works, how do you test it to confirm that it's going to pass? When you submit it, then how do you submit it, and then, any sort of credits that they needed to give. But there's no step-by-step guide here. It's really up to you to solve the problem that's laid out in the introduction. And I really like that because it forces you into a real working mode for a programmer. It makes you dig into the documentation. It makes you Google things. It makes you read those Stack Overflow threads. And that's really, let's be honest, 90% of what a computer programmer is going to do. They're going to be spending their time reading the documentation and looking for solutions that people have already made. And this just gives you a problem off the shelf that you can come to without any extra effort to exercise with. And it's just like that. When you're exercising your body, most of the time you're not doing anything more than moving a heavy weight around or running in place. You're just expending energy. You're putting work into your body instead of putting work and effort out into the world. That's one of the reasons why I really don't like exercise, if I'm honest. I feel like I'm not doing anything, although I do know that I'm doing a big service to my health and well-being. That's a personal discussion that I need to have later with myself. But Exorcism, a great tool for practicing different languages. It's free. I mentioned earlier that you can get mentored advice, so you can actually get someone who looks over your code, what you've submitted, and comments on it and says, this is good, this works, but here's maybe a better way to do it, or here's a tool in the language that maybe you don't know about that would have allowed you to solve the problem in a little bit more of an elegant way. That mentoring is really what sets Exorcism apart, I think, from other tools. But I don't know if I can show you since I've joined the track here, but Python is so popular they've run out of mentors for the Python track, and even though they have 119, they're not accepting new applications for mentoring. So if you work through Exorcism with Python on the Python track, you're going to be working on your own, and that doesn't mean that you don't have any help. You can still your solutions are still posted, and you could share links with someone who's more experienced in Python and get them to leave comments for you. But as part of the package here, they're all the 11 people that I think they have to be mentors. Let's see, did they say 11 or 7? Oh no, 119 mentors, 11 maintainers. The 119 mentors cannot keep up with the 71,000 people taking the track. So yeah, another plug, if you are able to mentor Python, if you have some experience, I'm pretty sure Exorcism is taking applications to be a mentor. If you create an account, there's an option where you can apply to become a mentor. So big hand goes out to, or a big round of applause for those mentors that are involved, that are helping to tutor people and help them build their skills. But we're going to work through the high scores module here without further ado. And I'll admit, this is a problem that I've solved before about a year ago. I think this was the last exercise that I completed in my first attempt to do the Python module in Exorcism. But I'll admit, I don't remember a lot. I don't think I remember anything other than the exercise existed. So I'm starting from scratch here, just like you will be. And I wanted to take you along for that ride. I don't know the answer. I'm probably going to run out of time that I can sit here at the computer before I can get it done. But I wanted to record my experience, and hopefully it encourages you to try Exorcism, and maybe we both learn something along the way. So I'm going to read over the description here to refresh my memory. That's, I think, an important thing that I'm likely to forget most of the time. Build a high score component of the classic Frogger game. Write the methods. So this is an important clue. We know that we're going to be writing multiple methods, and those methods will return 3 things. Okay. One is the highest score from the list. So I think we're going to be sorting lists and looking for the highest score. And then the last score added to the list. So we're going to be probably, that means we'll need to have the score, we'll need to have the list of scores unsorted, because we want to know, I guess, what was at the bottom of the list. I don't know if, surely you add to the bottom of the list instead of adding to the top when a new score is added. And then the 3 highest scores. So again, maybe this is sorting the list and just getting the top 3. So very similar to what the first case was, which is sorting the list and getting the top score. I don't know, maybe there's a function also where we don't have to sort the list. Maybe there's a function where we can provide a list and get the maximum value. Like I said, I don't know. We'll see. So we're going to use and manipulate lists. Python lists are versatile. So they do provide some places to go. So if you're looking for, so you don't have to start from scratch when you're looking for documentation. So I guess let's look through these in order. This is the Python docs for data structures. One of my college professors always talked about when you read a book, don't just open the book and start reading it from the beginning of the text. He said, read the table of contents. Understand where you are in the book, if you're going to a reference book and going to a specific section. So, in honor of him, let's do that. Some data structures. So this is a group of data, a chapter on data structures, and more about lists. Lists as stacks, lists as queries, list comprehension, and nested list comprehensions. And then other chapters, or other sections in this chapter. Okay. Previously they were talking about flow control. So I don't think we need to go back, because I think we have what we need for flow control. Okay, so I'm going to take this as our first clue. In here, I was thinking about how we would find the last added score. And it looks like the append method adds an item to the end of a list. So, I mean, that makes sense, that something that's added to a list goes to the bottom. So, I should have explained this earlier, but I've already downloaded the Exorcism exercise here, and I just run this line. I'll show you what this looks like, actually. In Bash, so this is not anything to do with Python, but this is a Bash script that uses the Exorcism application, which they'll tell you how to download and install, and it downloads a specific exercise from a specific track. So I've already run that, and what it does is it creates a folder in my Exorcism folder in my Python track called High Scores, and in that it puts these files. The file that I'm showing right here that's highscores.py, the test, which is something that we'll run as we develop our solution to see if it actually does what it needs to do, and then a README, which is just the markdown version of this file right here, what we're looking at on the web. So that's all that I've done already. And now I forgot what I was saying, what I was thinking, and now I'm messing up my window. Your task is to write methods to return high score. Yep. So the last score will be added to the end of the list. It's another clue in the append query. But let's see. Can we sort? Okay. This is important. Sort the items of the list in place. The arguments can be used for sort customization. See sorted for their explanation. So I guess this is another function here, sorted. Let's just see. Whoops. Okay. Sorted. Return a new sorted list from the items that in iterable. Okay. So this we can pass our scores object, and all of this that's already written in highscores.py, this is the boilerplate that is automatically downloaded from Exorcism. So this is your start. This is what you get even before you've written anything, is what we have right here. I like to create a little space right there so I can get started with something. So we know that we've got three methods. One's latest, one is personal best, and one is personal top 3. We know that we're getting a parameter, an input to that method called scores, and we're going to expect that scores is this list data type. So we can use all of these methods that are standard for lists in Python, and that we can use this function sorted and pass in that list as an iterable attribute, parameter. I'm sorry. So let's go ahead and try something here. We know that we need to sort this list. And I'm just going to say you sorted scores, and we're going to need to, first of all, we need to sort it. Set each comparison key. We can go even deeper here. Let's go even deeper. Let's figure out how sorting works. So built-in sort method. There's also sort builds a new. Okay. So this is another. We can sort this list in place. So if we just run sort scores, it's going to modify the list that gets passed into that function. Or we can use sorted to create a new list. So that answers one question that I had. And a simple ascending sort. So ascending seems to be the default. What if we want to sort in reverse? We saw that over here. Does this have the same definition for sort? It doesn't. So okay, I'm getting lost. Going too far. Ascending and descending. Okay. So key equals item getter to, I guess that's going to get a certain, so this list has 3 columns. This column which has names in it, John, Jane, Dave. This column which has letters in it, A, B, B. This column which has a number 15, 12, and 10. I'm assuming this item getter function, I don't want to deal with that, so I'm going to assume that we can just copy and paste that and set this reverse attribute. Okay, so both sort and sorted except the reverse parameter. Let's try this. Not knowing anything about Python, it's just one thing about it. We're not going to break anything. Reverse true. And then we need to return scores, and we need to get a certain, we need to get the first element in that list. So how do we get an item out of a list? This is so basic that this isn't even documented here. Let me go back to the table of contents and see if I should have read the manual and learned this earlier. In fact, I'm sure I did. I'm sure I should have. List. Basically, I wanted to see the first. Search sometimes is not the best way to find what you're looking for. Going in. Let's see. I think that this is going to be a basic topic. Data structures list. It implies that it's already talked about lists earlier in the documentation. So that's why I keep looking up here. Lists, there it is. This is the kind of basic stuff that I need to solve this basic problem. So I've got a list here, and this can be indexed and sliced. And this is the syntax for getting an item from the list, and it looks like, like most things in computer science, it's zero-based. So I don't need a dot, I just need an open and 0. And that should get the first thing out of that list once it's sorted greatest to least, which should give us the high score. So let's see what happens here. I'm going to save that file, and I'm going to do PyTest and ask it to give me verbose output so I can see the result of each test. And we know it's going to fail, but what we want to look for is maybe one possible success. Let's see. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Test. So the first thing it tests is the latest, and that failed. So this would be the only one. I should explain this a little bit more. So this is the command that I wrote. It starts the test session, and it gives me, what it's testing with. So I've got a problem here, to be honest. I don't think that PyTest is supposed to be using Python 2.7. But so far in these exorcism exercises, it hasn't caused a problem. So I'm just going to keep running with it until it does cause a problem, and then I'll try and figure out how to solve it. Then, because we use the -v option, it gives us more than just the result. Let me show you what it looks like without -v. It gives you all of the failures in detail, but this is what the summary report looks like. It just shows F, like all these things failed. What I've found I really like to see is this verbose output where it shows the name of each test. So test latest score, test personal best, test personal top highest to lowest, and then it shows whether each one passed or in this case failed. So the only thing that we were going to hope to succeed there was latest, and we see that it failed. So the first thing that's obvious, good gosh, I forgot an S in scores. So I'm not even returning a real variable. So let's see. Let's run that again because tests are cheap. It still failed. Well, let's look at what failed. So this is the test latest score. So test latest score. So it creates this. So what's contained in that high scores test file is these definitions. So it's creating a method called test latest score, and it creates a list with 100, 0, 90, and 30, and it gives a result after you run the latest method that I've written with scores. And it says here that there's a problem that sort is not defined because sort. Okay, I'm literally crashing through this, hitting every brick on the way down, every stick on the way down. I really should be using sort like this. So here's a good example. If I have a list, sort is a method available to that list. So my list is called A here, and the list contains 5 rows with these numbers on it. I can't run sort just freewheeling there. So I need to run sort as a method on an existing list. So I need to take my list, which is scores, and I need to use the dot notation to run the sort method of scores. Scores is as a list, as an instantiated list. Scores has a method available to it thanks to inheritance and object-oriented programming. I'm way out of left field, getting confused between sort and sorted, I think. So scores.sort, that's clear. Now let's see about the parameters for sort. Oops. So sort. Maybe that works. So let's just look at this. Sort accepts 2 arguments. Key, none, reverse false. Key specifies the function of one argument that's used to extract comparison key. Okay. I don't think it has anything to do with the key, but reverse is a Boolean value set to true. Passed by keyword. I'm assuming these keyword only arguments mean that you have to have this name in the argument. But there's a link where we can learn more if we needed to. Keyword only specifier. Only by keyword. Keyword only parameters can be defined by including a single variable positional parameter or bare asterisks in the parameter list. Okay, so I think we don't know everything about how this works. I haven't learned everything, but I think I've learned enough that this is worth a test, because tests are cheap. So we're getting scores, and that's a list. We're trusting that we've got a list coming in from the test here. We can actually see it. We know that this is how you define a list. And the sort method and the parameter here. So I'm using Visual Studio Code, obviously, and it's telling me that I've got an undefined variable sort. I'm not sure why it thinks it's a variable. I think that I saved it and it fixed it. And this pass thing is just a placeholder. We can leave it there or we can remove it. We probably should remove it. So we've saved it. We're going to run our PyTest verbose again, and let's see if we passed anything. Dang it, we failed again. I really thought that was going to work. But let's look in debug and see how we failed. So maybe the linter was right. It said sort is not defined. Okay, let's do this. I always like to try things out. So I'm going to go into Python here, and we're actually just going to have a conversation with Python and make sure that we do understand how it works. So I'm going to create a list. 100, 20, 30. And scores, I think it'll print it. Yeah. Okay. So I've got a list in Python, and now I think I should be able to do scores, sort. Hold on. I just thought of something. Sort modifies the list in place. Yeah, that's right. Sort. Boom, boom. So we should have 100, 30, and 20 now, I think. Ah, no. Ascending. Ascending is the default. So let's try that again. And reverse equals true. And scores. Yeah, okay, that works. Now what are we missing? Exit here. Go back to bash. I'm going to delete that because that's, if anything, causing a problem. We've got function starting and ending here. Return. That's what return is supposed to look like. Scores, sort, reverse, true. And what did this say? Okay, so it is returning something now. That was one thing that we saw earlier, is that there was nothing coming back. So we are getting 100. I'm sure everyone who's watching this, if anyone is watching this, realizes that I solved this personal best problem, but put it in the function for latest. Okay. So that's personal best, where we're sorting in a descending manner and returning the maximum. Latest, we should not sort. We should not sort. We should be looking at the last item in the list. So really what we want to do is we want to look at the list and get its length. And this is not probably the prettiest way to do it, but let's look at what methods are available for lists as far as length. Got a couple of things there. Length of a slice. Built-in function len. Okay. So that's not a method of a list, that's a function. So it will take the list as an argument. And I think that'll be it. I think that'll work. And let's go ahead and see if we can solve this personal top 3 before we do our next test, because we know that it's so similar to the personal best. We just need to return the top 3 instead of the top 1. So Python calls this slicing, when you grab a range of elements in a list. So slicing that way you can return a new list. So slicing, this is what we need. So we're going to use 0 to 3 here. It's going to give us the top 3 since we were sorted greatest to least. So let's test and see. Okay, so we have some passing. We have some things that are passing. Our first one, our latest score, did not pass, but it looks like everything else did, actually. That's cool. So we did a good job solving the problem. We just put it in the wrong function. So let's go back into Python and test our understanding here. So I'm going to make another list. Scores 100, 20, 30. Whoops. What did I do? Didn't have an assignment operator. And confirm that we got something. Scores. Yep. Okay. So len scores. This was something new. We hadn't used the length. Length is good, but it's giving. So remember I said earlier that the indices on a list are 0-based. It's giving the length, and the length is not 0-based. Length would start at 1 if you had one item in a list, and it's counting to 3, and the error that we're getting is because we're trying to go to the we're trying to use 3 as an index on a list that has 3 elements, but that list is 0-based, so it only goes up to 2. I know it's confusing, but what it boils down to is if you have 1, 2, 3 items in a list, those things will be numbered 0, 1, 2. Whoops. If I can type. Yeah, so if you imagine these things corresponding to one another, 1 will correspond to the 0 index, 2 will correspond to the first index, and 3 will correspond to the second index. These are the position names, so the length of this would be 3, not because this value is 3, but because there are 3 items here. So I'm getting way too verbose, if you will, about the problem. You probably understand it by now. So really, the simple thing to do, even if it's maybe not the elegant thing to do, is just to put in a -1 there. I'm pretty sure that's going to pass the test. Passed. Yep, so that's everything solved. I will say, as commentary, I'm not proud of what's written here. Even though it's a short number of lines, I don't think it's very clean. I don't think it's very easy for someone to come behind and understand. And I mean, this is a really simplistic problem, so anyone who has experience with Python could figure it out, but I think if I was writing a real program in this way, it would not be good. But these, I think, are pretty obvious. It's easy for someone who's coming behind you to look at that and understand the logic behind what you're doing, and understand the logic of each step, and then I think it'd be hard to write something that was much shorter and still really logical and easy for someone to follow. So the last step in any exorcism project is to submit the exercise, and I'll admit I don't have this syntax memorized, so I usually copy it and paste it into my terminal. It's just exorcism submit, and then I need to type in my solution file, which is highscores.py, and I'll get a little confirmation once it's done, and I can see my solution. Trust me, I can copy and paste. This is one of the problems with switching between, switching between computers and operating systems frequently is that their different user interface conventions are confusing to you. So this is my solution for high scores, posted on Exorcism's website. This is the code that I wrote. And before I do this, I can view community solutions and even go back and change mine if I get inspired. But I accept responsibility for this, so I'm going to go ahead and complete it. And that's going to mark it as available for other people to review. I always make these public, not because I think they're good, but because I think it's useful for other people to see different ways of solving the problems. So I can go and see other people's published solutions, even from here. I've been making the commitment to go and look at the community solutions for the problems that I solve. And I usually look at the last few. So this is mine. I don't need to look at that one again, but look at this guy. See how he solved it. Oh, geez. Yeah. So that's very obvious. Wow, that's so much better than what I did. He just used the negative option here to count from the end of the list. I totally forgot that that was available in Python lists, but looking at his solution, I've remembered. And he did the same thing with sorted. Instead of using the reverse option to sort greatest to least, he just sorted least to greatest and went to the end of the list, because he remembered this minus sign can be used to search from the end of the list. And then to do the personal top 3, he did do this. And instead of using sort and sorting it in place, he used sorted. And there's that distinction between a method. Sort is a method that works on a list. And sorted is a function that can take a list as an argument. So sorted yield, the result of sorted, is a list. And that's why he was able to use slicing to get the top 3. And I've also been reminded that I didn't need the 0 that I put here to slice from the beginning. But obviously it worked. It's just an extra keystroke that maybe I didn't need. So that's my solution. Looks like it took me about 40 minutes, a little over 40 minutes to get it done.